Purchase new wiper blades from O'Reilly Auto Parts today and we'll install them for free. See better and drive safer with O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome to the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and former therapist with a background in counseling psychology. This podcast is for strong, high-achieving women who want more in their lives and relationships, who are ready to rise to the next level of growth, healing, and evolution. Nothing changes until you change. And when you change, everything else changes around you as a result. If you're done with feeling powerless within the chaotic and toxic dynamics in your relationship and don't even know where to begin with making changes, I've got you covered. I know you've tried everything, including counseling, watching hours of videos, and reading stacks of books on narcissism, and find that all it does is leave you feeling even more stuck and in the same place. None of these things work when you're living with a narcissistic spouse because the root causes of the symptoms are not being addressed. As with physical health, there is an emotional, physical, spiritual, and psychological component to healing and overcoming the problematic symptoms and pain you're facing every day in your life and relationship. If you're ready for a direct, no fluff, no nonsense approach to take you into your personal power and take back your life, you are in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode. In this episode, we're going to talk about 5 survival tips that you need to know and be aware of before you actually exit your home or exit your relationship. This is not legal advice. This is just from my own personal experience and also working with so many women exiting these relationships. So we're going to dive right in. The first is don't vent to family and friends and coworkers and besties and all of that. I've seen women really get into a mess when they start to not have any clear, healthy boundaries around what they're sharing and with who. They just will share their story with whoever will listen, venting, going on about the stories about him and that and what's going on. You do need support, but what can happen with that is that you start to burn your friends out, or you have family that is encouraging you to stick it out, or they are judging you for your decision to leave the relationship. I have seen, sadly, so many cases of women suddenly not having friends that they thought they had when they are trying to exit, and not having the support of their family. So that aside, even if you say, yeah, I actually have really good friends, they get me, we're ride or die, or we've been friends forever, or my family's really supportive, you still don't want to tax those relationships. And they can only help you to a certain degree when they're emotionally involved in it, they love you, they care about you. It's really hard to get objective advice, and this is especially true if they have not experienced what you are living with. This is like a whole animal that you don't know what this is until you've lived it. Thank goodness. I hope nobody has to ever live with it. But it's true that many, many, many women are experiencing this type of abuse and manipulation behind closed doors because it's very hidden and it's very secretive. And it's not a lot of loud, out there kind of stuff where people can be like pointing the finger at him. He's throwing her against the wall. She has bruises, cuts, all this. It's typically, I'm not saying it doesn't ever escalate into that, but typically with the women I work with, it does not. It is very covert, hidden violence. And so you don't have the support of other people because they're like, oh, he's so wonderful. Like, are you sure? Like, he seems like such a great guy. Are you sure? He's such a good dad. Well, those good dads tend to end up having little to do with their kids after they leave, or the kids don't want anything to do with them. So let me just put that in there. So I would say very much don't rely on friends and family to vent to for support for various reasons. It's to protect your own energy. It starts to kind of feel icky when you have too many people in your business. Like if you have a really good friend or a couple of really good friends that you can actually vent to. A lot of women that I work with, because you're even in these relationships to begin with, you may not have the healthiest role models as far as your parents go for advice. And so really limit and keep yourself safe around who you're sharing with, and make sure that those people, as Brene Brown has said, they can earn your vulnerability. Like they've shown you that they're trusted. And even then, have some love for them as well, and realize that they cannot just be the continual dumping ground for what's going on next. So make sure that you are really careful with how you are asking for support from those people in your life. And that leads to number 2, you're going to have to invest. I really recommend if you do anything, Invest in getting the support that you need, the right coaching from someone that is skilled, who has many years of experience, who is educated, and who has the academic background, actual on-the-job experience as hopefully a therapist or a coach that actually has the training. You want them to have the experience, but also the specific experience and understanding of the intricacies of leaving one of these relationships. Generic coaching and generic therapy can only get you so far, and you've probably experienced that if you have tried to go that route. So make sure that you invest in yourself. It is worth investing. I definitely invested a lot in coaching and yes, therapy, but therapy only gets you so far, honestly. Check that out. Look for options. Research whoever it is that you're going to go to and make sure that they have the expertise, they are ethical, they know how to work with you properly within the realms and scope that they are trained in, and that they have the specific understanding of narcissistic abuse. It's a very specific thing. It's like coming out of the twilight zone, leaving one of these relationships. So you need the hand-holding and backing of people who get it. And if you're not already in my free Facebook community, in these show notes, I think it's in the show notes. So go ahead and check that out. Which leads to number 3, join a community. So Facebook groups are great. Free ones are great. I very much vet the women that come in. They have to answer entry questions. If they don't answer them, I don't let them in. I'm very careful about who has come in there. So there's never been, maybe I had like a couple of times where there's been spam, like someone spamming something weird. But typically no, like this is a group of women who are podcast listeners, who have been in my community for a while, women who have been in my programs, who have worked with me. So it's a very safe, smaller container. I think we've got just over 1,000 women in there. It's not a huge, massive group because I don't just let everyone in. There's even been times where there's been guys trying to let themselves in, and like I very carefully monitor or have someone else doing that. And so free. Are you ready to take action on your separation and divorce? Your Empowered Divorce Coaching is for successful career and entrepreneurial women who are ready to take action toward freeing themselves from the grip of toxic narcissistic abuse, or for those who have recently left and are still struggling to break free from the continued manipulation and control of their ex. If you're struggling with how to parent with your ex or don't know how to cut things off so you can finally heal, apply to become a client of my therapeutic coaching program. It starts with a free 15-minute chat so I can get an idea of where you're at, where you're making mistakes, and to determine how I can best support you to move forward. To book that 15-minute call, head to the link in the show notes. Back to the episode. Facebook groups are great, but typically they're going to be people regurgitating stories of trauma and things like that. So it can only get you so far. You want a solution focus. You want to be around solutions. So Facebook groups are great for that. My group, typically, there's not a lot of that. There's more just like discussions that will go on with things that I post over a lot of women just putting a bunch of stuff on the wall of their horror stories, which I really discourage actually in the group. I would prefer if you come in, you ask a question, or you ask if there's a podcast episode for the situation that you're in, or ask a question, ask for support. I don't typically approve posts that are big, long blog posts of horror stories because that just re-traumatizes everyone. We don't need that. And the more you regurgitate your story, the more you anchor it in, the more you relive the trauma, which goes back to point number 1, the actual venting and processing and talking about the same thing over and over again. It anchors it deeper in. It doesn't help you release it. There's other ways that you have to go about that, but just venting and talking about it isn't enough, and it actually can make it worse. And number 4, get legal consult. I'm not a lawyer, obviously. I can only speak from my experience and things I've seen women go through and the mistakes that I've seen women make. Just too abruptly or just out of reactive mode where they've done things that came back later to bite them in the ass. So before you, even if you're like, I'm not sure when I'm leaving or I'm not sure if I am yet, go talk to a lawyer and just say, hey, here it is. You need to have like all your financials and all that and go have a consult. It is worth it because then you will know the facts. Because a lot of times these men will tell you all kinds of bullshit that are not even true. So you need to go get your own legal advice based on where you are before you leave the house, because in some areas of the world, some states, if you leave, then it's looked at as abandonment, or they can lock you out of the house, or they could start to control your things in the home if you leave. Like, this is because you're not dealing with a rational human, right? So I want you to be safe, and I want to make sure that you are protected. So please get legal consult. And number 5, embrace fear, because so many women are fearful of the other side, fearful of what's going to happen, fearful of being alone, fearful of their reaction, fearful if they can do it on their own, and all the things. Like, just write your list of fears. You can't wait for the fear to dissipate or go away. It doesn't go away. You just have to stop allowing it to be the reason that you stay. You walk with the fear, you kind of befriend it. It's like, yep, fear is here to keep us safe. You can see it, that it's a protective mechanism, and you can talk to it and say, yeah, I get it. This is very terrible, and this is very terrifying, and I'm so scared, but you can still take the steps and move. And just be prepared to fully count on yourself. If you have kids, be prepared to be the full-time main parent. Even if the other parent is like, I want 50-50, I want them as much as I can. That typically doesn't happen. I don't see that very often, and I don't know if I have seen a case where that has stuck, maybe in the beginning, but it typically doesn't stick because they go on and move on with new partners, and the kids kind of take a backseat. And the kids, as they get older, also make their own decisions around who they want to be with. So just prepare. You have to be strong. And I didn't do this perfectly, for sure. I succumbed to some of the stress, as I've shared, with a diagnosis that I'm working on healing, and realizing that stress was probably the trigger, very 99% sure that's the trigger. So, and even when doing all the things that you try to do, stuff still happens. We can't prevent things from going wrong. We can't control everything. We need to learn to just kind of let go, and kind of let go of the death grip on life, because we don't know what's coming. And the fear usually is, I don't know if I can handle what's coming for me. So you have to be able to trust yourself that no matter what happens, that you've got you, that you will get through it. The self-trust to know that you can get through whatever comes your way. All right, so I hope that has been helpful. These are the 5 biggies. There's more, obviously, and it's not just a straight line. It's not linear. There's a lot of twists and turns and backwards and forwards. And again, that goes back to why it's really important to have the right support. All right, so I will chat with you in the next episode. In the meantime, take good care. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast. If you love this episode, please take a moment to share it and leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're ready to take your next step, head to the link in the show notes to sign up for my latest free class. Also, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Awakening Women Official and join the conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again in the next episode. Take care of yourself in the meantime, and I'll see you online.